The distress signal screamed across every communications channel in the Veltara system. Ambassador Ceres stood in the communications center, his 4 hands trembling as he watched the sensor displays paint a picture of doom. The Krathic swarm had arrived and they were hungry. "Send the message again," Ceres ordered, his translator converting his clicks and whistles into galactic standard. "All frequencies. Someone must hear us." The communications officer, a young Veltaran named Kess, worked frantically at her console. Her antennae drooped with exhaustion and fear. They had been sending the SOS for 6 hours now. The Galactic Council had responded with promises of help, but their fleet was 14 days away. The Krathics would be landing on Veltara in less than 3 days. Ceres looked at the tactical display. The Krathic ships moved like insects through space, which was fitting since they resembled the most terrible predators from a dozen worlds combined. They consumed everything. Worlds that fell to the Krathics became barren rocks, stripped of all biological matter. 50 million Veltarans lived on the surface below. In 3 days they would all be food. "Ambassador," Kess said suddenly, her voice high with surprise. "We have a response. It is not from the Council." "Play it," Ceres commanded. The speakers crackled with static and then a voice came through. It was strange, flat in some ways but carrying an undercurrent of something Ceres could not identify. The voice spoke in accented but clear galactic standard. "Veltara Station, this is Admiral Sarah Chen of the United Earth Defense Fleet. We have received your distress call. Help is coming. Hold on. We will be there in 3 days. Earth out." The communications center fell silent. Every Veltaran present stared at the speakers as if they had just heard a ghost speak. "Earth?" Kess whispered. "The quarantined world?" Ceres felt his blood chill. Every species in the Galactic Council knew about Earth. It was the forbidden system, the quarantine zone established 2 cycles ago after first contact had gone terribly wrong. The humans came from a death world, a planet so hostile that merely living there had turned them into something the galaxy had never seen before. He remembered the reports. Humans evolved on a world with gravity 30% higher than standard. Their star bombarded their planet with radiation that would be lethal to most species. Their world was filled with predators, diseases, and natural disasters that should have prevented intelligent life from ever developing. But humans had not just survived. They had thrived. They had conquered their world and reached for the stars. The first contact team had been traumatized. The humans were predators, pursuit predators who hunted by chasing prey until it collapsed from exhaustion. They had eyes that faced forward like hunters. They showed their teeth when happy, bared bone and expressions that looked like threat displays. They laughed at danger, sought out pain for recreation, and formed emotional bonds with anything that moved, even predators from their own world. The Galactic Council had politely but firmly suggested that humans remain in their own system until the galaxy was ready for them. The humans had agreed, though the reports said they found the whole thing amusing. "Should we accept their help?" Kess asked. Ceres looked at the tactical display again. The Krathic's fleet was massive, far larger than any force the Veltarans could muster. The Council fleet was too far away. They had no choice. "Yes," he said. "Send a response. Tell them we accept any help they can provide." Across the system, on the Council monitoring station, Overseer Trencott was having a very different reaction to the same news. The Overseer was a Quellan, a species known for careful deliberation and risk assessment. The idea of humans leaving their quarantine zone filled him with dread. "We must stop them," Trencott said to his council of advisors. "The quarantine exists for a reason. The humans are not restricted by council law," his military advisor pointed out. "They agreed to the quarantine voluntarily. They can end it whenever they choose. But if they come here, if they interact with other species in a combat situation..." Trencott trailed off. The possibilities were terrifying. Humans were unstable, violent, and far too emotional. They made decisions based on feelings rather than logic. They formed attachments to strangers. They threw themselves into danger for abstract concepts like honor and duty. "Send a message to the human fleet," Trencott ordered. "Inform them that council forces are en route and their assistance is not required." The response came back within minutes. Admiral Chen's voice was polite but firm. "Overseer Trencott, we appreciate your concern. However, someone called for help, and we are in a position to provide it. We will see you in the Veltara system. Earth out." Trencott felt his breathing sacs constrict with anxiety. The humans were coming, and there was nothing he could do to stop them. On Veltara's surface, the population had received the news of Earth's response with mixed feelings. They were desperate for help, but the stories about humans were frightening. Children were told tales of the Deathworlders, the creatures who lived on a planet that actively tried to kill them and became stronger for it. Ceres addressed the Planetary Council. His words broadcast to every city and settlement on Veltara. "We face extinction," he said simply. "The Krathiks come to consume us. The Council cannot reach us in time. The humans have offered help. I know they frighten us. I know the stories. But I also know that they heard our call and chose to answer when they did not have to. They owe us nothing. They are not part of the Council. They could have ignored our plea. They did not." He paused, letting his words sink in. "In 3 days, we will see if the legends about humans are true. I choose to hope that the best legends are the real ones. The stories that say humans cannot bear to see others suffer. The stories that say they will fight impossible odds for strangers. The stories that say when they decide you are part of their pack, they will die before they let harm come to you." Across the planet, Veltarans looked up at their sky and waited. In 3 days, they would either be saved or dead. All they could do was hope that the Deathworlders coming to help them were more interested in saving lives than taking them. In orbit, Kess monitored the long-range sensors. She could see the Krathiks' fleet advancing, steady and unstoppable, and beyond them moving faster than should be possible. She detected the faint signatures of ships entering the system from the opposite direction. The humans were coming. She did not know if she should feel relief or terror. Perhaps both. She sent a silent prayer to the old gods of Veltara, gods that most of her people no longer believed in. She prayed that the Deathworlders would be their salvation, not their doom. The countdown had begun. 3 days until the Krathiks arrived. 3 days until the humans arrived. 3 days until Veltara learned whether the galaxy's most feared species would be their saviors, or simply different predators. The United Earth Defense Fleet moved through slipspace like a spear thrown by an angry god. Admiral Sarah Chen stood on the bridge of the UED's Indomitable, watching her crew work with practiced efficiency. Around her flagship, 73 other ships kept perfect formation. It was not the largest fleet Earth could muster, but it was the fastest response they could organize in 6 hours. Chen was 52 years old, gray threading through her black hair, and she had been in the military for 30 years. She had fought in the water wars on Earth, commanded peacekeeping missions on Mars, and trained for scenarios just like this. But this was different. This was not a simulation or a local conflict. This was first contact with a hostile force, and the whole galaxy was watching. "Status report," she said calmly. "We are maintaining maximum slipspace velocity," her navigation officer reported. "Arrival in Veltara system in 68 hours. "Good. Have all ships received the tactical briefing?" "Yes, Admiral. All captains have confirmed receipt and understanding." Chen nodded. She had spent the last 6 hours planning with her staff. The Krathiks were known predators, but they had never faced humans before. That was going to be their first mistake. And hopefully their last. A door opened behind her, and Chen turned to see Junior Analyst Miv enter the bridge. The small Quellan looked nervous, his 3 eyes darting around the room. Overseer Trencott had assigned Miv to observe the human fleet, probably hoping the young analyst would find evidence that humans were too dangerous to allow into galactic affairs. "Analyst Miv," Chen said, her voice friendly. "Welcome to the bridge. Please observe as much as you like." Miv bobbed his head in what Chen had learned was a gesture of respect. He moved to an observation station, his eyes wide as he watched the humans work. Chen understood his nervousness. Humans made other species uncomfortable. They moved too quickly, spoke too loudly, and smiled too much. Their body language was aggressive by galactic standards, and they came from a world that most species would consider hell. She remembered the first contact mission 2 years ago. The Council diplomats had been terrified. They saw humans as monsters, predators barely restrained by civilization. The fact that humans kept carnivorous animals as pets, that they enjoyed combat sports, that they told stories glorifying violence, all of it confirmed the Council's worst fears, but the Council did not understand. Humans were violent, yes. Earth had made them that way. But Earth had also made them compassionate, creative, and stubbornly hopeful. A species that evolved on a death world learned to help each other or die, Humans had learned to cooperate, to sacrifice, to care for the weak and injured. They had to, or they would never have survived. "Admiral," her communications officer called out, "we are receiving a message from Overseer Trencott. He is requesting that we reconsider our course of action." "Play it," Chen said. Trencott's voice filled the bridge. "Admiral Chen, I must urge you to return to your system. The Council fleet will handle the Veltara situation. Your presence may complicate diplomatic matters." Chen smiled, though she knew it would look threatening on the recording. "Overseer Trencott, I appreciate your concern. However, we heard a distress call and we are responding. If that complicates your diplomacy, I apologize. But we will not leave people to die while we wait for permission to save them. Chen out." Miv made a small sound, something between fear and surprise. Chen looked at him. "Problem, analyst?" "No, Admiral," Miv said quickly. "I am simply surprised. You speak to an overseer with very little deference." "Deference is earned," Chen said. "Right now, the overseer is sitting safely in a station while people are about to die. We are going to save them. I will happily defer to him after everyone is safe." The bridge crew continued their work, but Chen noticed small smiles on several faces. Her people were proud. Maybe too proud, but they believed in what they were doing. That belief made them dangerous. Over the next 2 days, Miv watched the human crew with growing fascination and horror. He had expected military discipline, and he saw it. But he also saw things that made no sense. The humans trained constantly. He watched Marines practicing combat in a training room with gravity increased to 1.5 standard. They moved and fought under conditions that would crush most species. When they finished, they laughed and congratulated each other despite being exhausted and injured. He observed the pilots running simulations of combat scenarios. The scenarios were brutal, with casualty rates that would be considered unacceptable losses by Council standards. The humans ran them over and over, finding ways to reduce the losses from catastrophic to merely terrible. But most disturbing was what the humans did for recreation. He watched them engage in activities they called entertainment. They watched fictional stories about disasters, monsters, and wars. They listened to music that sounded like violence set to rhythm. They read books about struggles and suffering. "Why do you do this?" Miv asked Lieutenant Commander Jackson, the officer assigned to assist him. Jackson was a tall woman with dark skin and kind eyes, but she could snap Miv in half without effort. "Do what?" Jackson asked. "Subject yourselves to these violent simulations and stories. It seems to cause you distress, yet you seek it out." Jackson considered the question. "We practice hard because fights are harder. We watch scary movies and read sad books because it helps us understand fear and loss without actually experiencing them. And when we do experience them, we are ready." "But it seems cruel," Miv said. "Maybe," Jackson agreed. "But our world was cruel. It made us tough. And that toughness means we can help people who never had to develop it." That night, Miv could not sleep. He kept thinking about what Jackson had said. Humans chose to be hard on themselves so they could be soft for others. It was a concept he struggled to understand. On the morning of the 3rd day, the fleet prepared to drop out of slip space. Chen stood on her bridge, her crew at their stations, every ship ready for combat. "Analyst Miv," Chen said, "you should go to the observation deck. It is safer there." "I wish to remain here," Miv said. "To observe." Chen looked at him for a long moment, then nodded. "Strap in. This might get rough." The fleet dropped out of slip space at the edge of the Veltara system. Immediately, sensors lit up with contacts. The Krathix fleet was massive, hundreds of ships surrounding the planet, and they were already engaging Veltaran defenses. "We are too late," Miv whispered. "No," Chen said. "We are right on time. Communications, open a channel to all ships." "Channel open, Admiral." Chen's voice was calm and cold as winter. "All ships, this is Chen. We have civilians dying down there. I do not care how many enemy ships there are. We are going through them. Weapons free. Show them why you do not threaten Earth's friends. Execute attack plan Delta, go loud." The human fleet accelerated toward the battle at speeds that made Miv's eyes water. And as they flew, every ship activated their targeting systems, their weapons, and their electronic warfare suites. The Krathix were about to learn a terrible lesson. They had encountered prey species before. They had even encountered warrior species. But they had never encountered predators. And humans were the best predators evolution had ever created. The Krathix Hive coordinator, designated Strike Leader 7, watched the new contacts appear on its tactical display with curiosity rather than concern. The small fleet numbered less than 80 vessels, insignificant compared to the 400 ships of the Krathic swarm. The Veltarans were broken, their orbital defenses shattered. This new fleet would die like all the others. Strike Leader 7 sent the mental command through the Hive network. All Krathic ships received it simultaneously, as thoughts traveled faster than communication signals. The message was simple: destroy the newcomers. 300 Krathix fighters launched from the carrier vessels, moving to intercept the approaching fleet. They would swarm the enemy, overwhelm them with numbers, and consume their crews. It was the way of the Krathix. It had always worked, but then the human fighters met them, and Strike Leader 7 experienced something it had never felt before: confusion. The human fighters moved wrong. They accelerated and turned at speeds that should tear ships apart. They flew in patterns that violated standard tactical doctrine, spreading out and then converging like a pack of hunters cutting off prey. And their weapons were devastatingly accurate. Krathix fighters exploded in brilliant flashes of light. 20 gone in the first 30 seconds, 50 within a minute. The human pilots flew like they were part of their machines, reacting faster than should be possible. Strike Leader 7 watched one human fighter pull a maneuver that made no tactical sense. The human pilot dove straight toward a Krathix carrier, ignoring the point defense fire that should have shredded the small ship. At the last moment, the fighter pulled up, rolling and twisting in a way that generated forces that should have killed the pilot. But the humans survived, and their weapons carved a line across the carrier's hull, breaching 3 decks. What are these creatures? Strike Leader 7 wondered through the Hive link. The answer came from the combat data flowing through the network. The newcomers were humans, Deathworlders from a quarantined system. Strike Leader 7 searched the Krathix collective memory but found little information. Humans were unknown, unproven. That was about to change. On the bridge of the Indomitable, Admiral Chen watched the battle unfold with satisfaction. The fighter wings were performing exactly as trained. The Krathix had numbers, but they flew like they expected enemies to flee. They were predators used to hunting prey. Excellent work, Fighter Command, Chen said. Capital ships begin firing runs. Target their carriers first. The human warships opened fire with railguns, launching slugs of metal at a significant fraction of light speed. The Krathix shields absorbed the first impacts, but human weapons were designed for sustained fire. The railguns kept shooting, pounding the same spots over and over until shields failed and hulls breached. Missiles followed, guided by AI systems that predicted Krathix movements and adjusted in flight. The Krathix point defenses shot down many missiles, but not all of them. Explosions rippled across Krathix vessels as human weapons found their marks. Admiral, the Krathix are launching boarding pods toward the Veltaran orbital stations, her tactical officer reported. Chen's expression hardened. Marine Companies 3 through 7 intercept those pods. Do not let them reach the stations. Yes, Admiral. Miv watched in horror and awe as human Marines launched from their ships in small assault craft. The Marines flew directly toward the Krathix boarding pods, and when they got close enough, they opened their airlocks and jumped out into space. They are in vacuum, Miv said, his voice high with panic. They will die. Lieutenant Commander Jackson, standing nearby, shook her head. Watch. The Marines wore armor that made them look like machines. They used small thrusters to maneuver in space, moving between the Krathix pods and the stations. When they reached the pods, they attached explosive charges and kicked away. The pods detonated, killing the Krathix inside before they could reach their targets. But some pods got through, latching onto a Veltaran station. Miv saw the Marines change course, heading for the station. They are going to board the station while it is under attack, Jackson explained. The Krathix are inside. Our Marines will hunt them. Hunt? Miv repeated. We are very good at hunting, Jackson said quietly. On Station Delta 4, the Veltaran workers had huddled in the central chamber when the Krathix broke through the hull. The Krathix were terrifying insectoid creatures the size of a human, with razor mandibles and acid spit. They moved through the station corridors searching for prey. Then the humans arrived. The Krathix heard strange sounds echoing through the station, rhythmic thumping like a heartbeat, and then voices, human voices, not shouting but speaking calmly to each other in a language the Krathix could not understand. The first Krathix to encounter the humans died before it could send a warning through the Hive link. The humans moved through the corridors in small groups, their weapons precise and lethal. They did not spray fire wildly. Each shot was placed exactly where it needed to be. Sergeant Marcus Webb led his fire team through the station, his enhanced vision allowing him to see in the darkness. He could hear the Krathiks moving ahead, their claws clicking on the metal floor. He hand-signaled his team and they spread out, covering multiple angles. A Krathix rounded the corner and Webb shot it twice in what his briefing had identified as its primary nerve cluster. The creature dropped without a sound. His team moved forward, clearing each room with practiced efficiency. They found the Veltaron workers in the central chamber, terrified and huddled together. 3 Krathiks were advancing on them, mandibles clicking with anticipation. "Contact," Webb said calmly. Engaging, his team opened fire. The Krathiks tried to scatter, but there was nowhere to go. In 5 seconds, all 3 were dead. Webb approached the Veltarans, removing his helmet so they could see his face. He knew humans looked scary, but he wanted them to see his eyes. "You are safe now," he said in Galactic Standard. "We are here to protect you." One of the Veltarans, a female with blue markings, looked at him with her large compound eyes. "You are human," she said. "Deathworlder." "Yes," Webb said. "And today we are your Deathworlders." In orbit, the battle continued. The Krathiks were learning a terrible lesson about humans. These creatures did not fight like prey species, defending and hoping to survive. They fought like apex predators, attacking with precision and ferocity that the Krathiks had never encountered. Strike Leader 7 made a decision it had never made before. It sent the command through the Hive network: retreat. The Krathiks fleet began to pull back, trying to disengage from the battle. But Admiral Chen had anticipated this. Her ships had positioned themselves during the fight, cutting off the Krathiks' escape routes. The Krathiks fleet found itself surrounded, trapped between human warships and the planet they had tried to attack. "All ships maintain formation," Chen ordered. "Do not let them escape. They came here to hunt. Now they are the prey." Miv watched the tactical display in stunned silence. The Krathiks, the terror of a dozen systems, were fleeing, and the humans were not letting them go. The Deathworlders were doing what their name suggested, bringing death to those who threatened their newly declared friends. "This is not defense," Miv said. "This is something else." "Yes," Chen said, overhearing him. "This is justice. They came to murder civilians. We will not let that stand." The battle lasted another 6 hours. By the end, the Krathiks fleet was destroyed, scattered, or fleeing the system in panic. Not a single Krathic soldier made it to the Veltaran surface. The humans had stopped them completely. On Veltara, Ambassador Cirrus watched the orbital battle through the communication center's displays. He had seen the humans arrive, seen them fight, and seen them win. The Deathworlders had saved his people. But as he watched, he wondered if the galaxy had just traded one threat for another. The humans were terrifying in their competence, brutal in their efficiency. They had destroyed the Krathiks with a casualness that suggested this was routine for them. What kind of species did this? What kind of world created predators this deadly? And most importantly, now that the humans had left their quarantine, what would they do next? The Krathiks Hive Coordinator, designated Strike Leader 7, sent its consciousness racing through the quantum link to the hive mind central intelligence, billions of light years away. The message it carried was unprecedented in Krathik's history, a warning of a superior predator. The hive mind received the combat data with what could only be called shock. The Krathiks had consumed worlds for millions of years, expanding endlessly through the galaxy. They had encountered resistance before, but never predators, never creatures that hunted with such precision and purpose. The footage from Strike Leader 7's ships showed humans moving through space with impossible grace. They endured G-forces that should have liquefied their organs. They fought while injured, sometimes with limbs missing, continuing to fire weapons until they physically could not. They coordinated perfectly, as if they shared a hive mind, yet they were individuals acting independently. Most terrifying was their determination. When Krathik's warriors retreated, they survived to fight again, but humans did not allow retreat. They pursued, they hunted, they finished what they started. The hive mind made a decision that would echo through Krathik space for generations. It designated humans as Apex Threat Level 1 and issued a directive: avoid human space at all costs. Any Krathik's fleet encountering humans was ordered to retreat immediately. The Krathiks, the scourge of hundreds of worlds, had learned fear. On Veltara, The aftermath of the battle was a mixture of celebration and shock. The human fleet remained in orbit, providing medical assistance and helping to repair damaged stations. Ambassador Cirrus stood in a landing bay as the first human shuttle descended to the surface. He had invited Admiral Chen to visit the planet, to meet the people she had saved. Now, waiting for her arrival, Cirrus felt nervous. The humans had saved them, yes, but they had also demonstrated a capacity for violence that was deeply unsettling. The shuttle landed with barely a whisper of engines. The door opened and Admiral Chen stepped out, flanked by 2 Marines in full armor. She was smaller than Cirrus expected, though still taller than most Veltarans. Her hair was gray, her face lined with age, but her eyes were sharp and alert. "Ambassador Cirrus," she said, bowing slightly in a gesture of respect. "Thank you for the invitation." "Admiral Chen," Cirrus replied, clicking his mandibles in the Veltaran equivalent of a bow. "Thank you for saving my people. We owe you a debt we can never repay." Chen smiled, and Cirrus tried not to flinch at the sight of her teeth. "You owe us nothing. We heard someone in trouble and we helped. That is what neighbors do." "Neighbors?" Cirrus repeated. "You live many light years away." "Distance does not matter," Chen said. "You called for help. We answered. That makes us neighbors." Cirrus led Chen through the capital city. Veltarans lined the streets, watching the human admiral with a mixture of awe and fear. Children hid behind their parents, peeking out at the Deathworlder who had saved them. Chen noticed their fear and stopped walking. She turned to address the crowd, speaking in careful galactic standard. "I know we frighten you," she said. "I know the stories about humans, about our world and our nature. The stories are true. We are predators. Our world is harsh and dangerous. We evolved to survive conditions that would kill most of you." The crowd was silent, listening. "But our harsh world taught us something else," Chen continued. "It taught us to protect each other. On Earth, humans who worked together survived. Those who did not died. We learned that the strong must protect the weak, or everyone loses. We learned that when someone calls for help, you answer, no matter the cost." She paused, looking at the faces in the crowd. "You are under our protection now, not because we own you or control you, but because you needed help and we were able to give it. That is enough. That will always be enough." An elderly Veltaran stepped forward from the crowd. His carapace was scarred with age, his antennae bent. He approached Chen slowly. "I am Elder Tiv," he said. "I fought in the last war against the Krathiks 50 cycles ago. We barely survived. I watched them kill my family, my friends. I have nightmares about them still." He paused, his voice shaking. "But when I watched you fight them, I felt something I have not felt in 50 cycles. I felt safe. You hunted them the way they hunt us. You made them afraid. Thank you." The old Veltaran reached out with one hand, a gesture of trust and friendship. Chen took his hand gently in hers, careful not to grip too hard. "You are safe now," she said. "We will make sure of it." The crowd began to cheer, a clicking, whistling sound that echoed through the streets. The fear was still there, but it was joined by something else, gratitude and hope. In the council monitoring station, Overseer Trencott was having a very different reaction to the battle. He watched the combat recordings with growing dread. The humans had not just won the battle. They had dominated it so completely that the Krathiks, a species that had never retreated from any fight, had fled in panic. "This is a disaster," Trencott said to his advisors. "The humans have revealed their true nature. They are more dangerous than we feared." His military advisor, a veteran of many campaigns, disagreed. "With respect, Overseer, they saved the Veltarans. They stopped the Krathiks with minimal collateral damage. They protected civilians at the cost of their own soldiers' lives. They took 4,000 casualties," Trencott said. 4,000 of their people died or were injured. For strangers, that is not logical. "No," the advisor agreed. "It is not logical. It is moral. And that makes them more valuable as allies than any logical species could be." Trencott wanted to argue, but he could not. The council had failed to protect Veltara. The humans had succeeded. The political implications were enormous. Junior analyst Miv entered the room, still wearing his observer uniform from the human fleet. He looked exhausted but animated, his 3 eyes bright with excitement. "Overseer," he said, "I have completed my report on the humans." "And?" Trencott asked. "Are they as dangerous as we feared?" Miv considered the question carefully. "Yes," he said finally. "They are perhaps more dangerous than we imagined. but not in the way we thought. He pulled up images from his time on the human fleet. Marines training in crushing gravity, pilots flying suicidal attack patterns, soldiers fighting while wounded. The humans are dangerous because they do not calculate survival odds the way we do, Miv explained. They will take injuries that would incapacitate us and keep fighting. They will fly into situations that guarantee casualties because the objective matters more than individual survival. They are, by our standards, insane. Then we were right to fear them, Trencott said. No, Miv said firmly. We were wrong, because that same insanity means they will protect others with the same disregard for their own safety. They took 4,000 casualties saving Veltara, because they decided the Veltarans mattered. And once humans decide you matter, they will move mountains to help you. He paused, looking directly at Trencott. They are dangerous, Overseer, but they are dangerous to our enemies, not to us, unless we make ourselves their enemies. At that moment, alarms sounded throughout the station. The long-range sensors had detected something. The Council fleet was finally arriving 14 days late, just as promised. Admiral Chen received the notification on the Veltaran surface. She looked up at the sky, where the Council fleet was beginning to appear as bright points of light. It seems the Council has arrived, she said to Ambassador Ceres. What will you do? Ceres asked. Will you leave now that they are here? Chen smiled.
No. We will stay until we are certain you are safe.
We will coordinate with the Council fleet, help with repairs, and make sure the Krathiks do not return. And then we go home, Chen said. But we will be listening. If you need help again, just call. Ceres felt a weight lift from his thorax. The humans would stay. They would help. And even when they left, they would be listening. For the first time since the Krathiks appeared, Ceres felt truly safe. The Grand Council chamber on the station orbiting Veltara had never held such a tense gathering. Representatives from 47 species sat in their designated sections, their various forms of body language all conveying the same thing: uncertainty and fear. At the center of the chamber stood Admiral Sarah Chen, alone except for 2 honor guards standing at attention behind her. She wore her dress uniform, crisp and decorated with medals that represented conflicts the Council had never heard of. To the Council members, she looked small and fragile. They had no idea how wrong that impression was. Overseer Trencott presided over the session, his voice amplified through the chamber's speakers. Admiral Chen of Earth, you stand before the Galactic Council to answer for your actions in the Veltara system. Chen raised an eyebrow. Answer for saving lives? Interesting choice of words, Overseer. A murmur ran through the chamber. Council sessions were formal, polite affairs. Direct challenge was rare. You violated the quarantine agreement, Trencott continued. You brought human forces into Council space without authorization. You engaged in military action without Council oversight. The quarantine was voluntary, Chen replied calmly. We agreed to it as a courtesy, not a legal obligation. We are not Council members, so Council law does not apply to us. And as for engaging in military action, we responded to a distress call. Are you suggesting we should have ignored it? Ambassador Ceres stood from his seat in the Veltaran section. If I may speak, Overseer? Trencott hesitated, then nodded. Ceres approached the center of the chamber, standing beside Chen. The humans saved my world. The Council promised help in 14 days. The Krathiks would have consumed us in 3. Admiral Chen and her fleet arrived in 3 days, and defeated an enemy that has terrorized the galaxy for centuries. I do not understand why we are questioning their actions instead of thanking them. Because we must consider the precedent, Trencott said. If we allow humans to operate freely in Council space, what happens next? They are predators, Ambassador. Today they saved you. Tomorrow they might decide to conquer you. Chen's expression hardened. Overseer Trencott, I understand your concern. You look at us and see predators. You are correct. We are predators. Earth made us that way. But you are making a fundamental error in your analysis. She stepped forward, her voice carrying clearly through the chamber. You assume that because we are predators, we are threats. But you forget that we are also social predators. We hunt in packs. We protect our pack members. And once we decide someone is part of our pack, we will die before we let harm come to them. She gestured to Ceres. The Veltarans called for help. They became part of our pack in that moment. We lost 4,000 soldiers protecting them. 4,000 humans who will never go home, who died for people they never met on a world they had never seen. Do you think we did that so we could conquer Velterra later? The chamber was silent. We do not want your territory, Chen continued. We do not want your resources. We do not want to rule you. We want to know that when someone screams for help in the darkness, someone will answer. We want to live in a galaxy where the strong protect the weak, not prey on them. If that makes us dangerous, then yes, we are dangerous. But we are dangerous to those who threaten the innocent, not to the innocent themselves. A council member from the Pelian delegation stood, his crystalline body chiming softly as he moved. Admiral Chen, what you say is inspiring. But how can we trust it? How do we know you will not change? Power corrupts, as the saying goes. Chen smiled sadly. You are right to be cautious. Power does corrupt, but I can offer you this. Transparency. Put observers on our ships. Visit our worlds. Study our history. You will see that we have fought many wars, made many mistakes, but we have always tried to do better. We have always tried to protect those who cannot protect themselves. Junior analyst Miv stood from his observer section, a breach of protocol. If I may speak, honored council members. Trencott looked annoyed but nodded. Miv approached the center. I spent 3 days aboard the human flagship. I observed their training, their culture, their decision-making process. I was terrified of them at first. I am still somewhat frightened, but I also learned something important. He turned to face the council. The humans train in conditions that would kill most of us. They subject themselves to pain and hardship voluntarily. When I asked why, they said it was because fights are harder than training. They make themselves suffer so that when danger comes, they are ready. But they do not do this for themselves alone. They do it so they can protect others. Miv paused, his 3 eyes moving across the faces of the council members. I watched a human sergeant named Marcus Webb hold a position against Krathik's attackers for 6 hours. He was injured, bleeding, in pain. Any of our species would have retreated or died. He kept fighting because there were Velterran civilians behind him. When we finally reached him, he asked if the civilians were safe before he asked for medical attention. The analyst's voice shook with emotion. These are not conquerors. These are guardians, and we need them. Ambassador Cirrus spoke again. The overseer is correct that we must consider precedent. So let us consider it properly. What precedent do we set if we punish those who answer distress calls? What message do we send to the galaxy if we tell the humans to return to their quarantine after they saved millions of lives? He looked around the chamber. The Krathiks have terrorized the Council for generations. We have lost dozens of worlds to them. In one battle, the humans defeated them so completely that we have received intelligence reports suggesting the Krathiks have designated human space as forbidden territory. They are afraid of humans. Let that sink in. The Krathiks, who fear nothing, now fear Earth. A council member from the Quellan delegation, Trencott's own species, stood. Overseer, I respectfully suggest we vote on the matter. Should humans be granted access to council space and invited to join the council as provisional members? Trencott looked unhappy, but he could not refuse. Very well. All in favor of granting humans access to council space and extending an invitation to join as provisional members. The voting display lit up. One by one, species cast their votes. Some voted against, still fearful of the Deathworlders, but more voted in favor. The Velterrans voted yes unanimously. The Pelians voted yes. The military delegations voted yes. When the count finished, the result was clear. 39 in favor, 8 against. The motion carries, Trencott said, his voice flat. Humans are granted access to council space and are invited to join as provisional members. Chen bowed slightly. The people of Earth are honored by your trust. We accept your invitation. There will be conditions, Trencott warned. Observers, regulations, oversight. We welcome it, Chen said. Transparency works both ways. We want you to know us, to understand us. We want to prove that your trust is not misplaced. The session ended and Chen walked out of the chamber with Cirrus beside her. You did well in there, Cirrus said. You gave them hope. I spoke the truth, Chen replied. The rest is up to them. They can trust us or fear us. But either way, we will keep doing what we do. And what is that? Chen smiled, answering when someone calls for help. 3 weeks later, the last human ship prepared to leave Velterra orbit. The planet's defenses had been repaired and upgraded. Council forces had established a permanent garrison. The Krathiks had not returned. Admiral Chen stood on the bridge of the Indomitable one last time, looking at the planet below. It was beautiful. A world of blue oceans and green continents, home to 50 million grateful souls. Admiral, her communications officer said, "We are receiving a transmission from Veltara. It is Ambassador Cirrus. Put him on screen." Cirrus appeared, his mandibles clicking in what Chen had learned was a smile. "Admiral, I wanted to say goodbye properly, and to thank you again." "No thanks necessary, Ambassador. We did what anyone should do, but not everyone would," Cirrus said. "Most would calculate the risk and decide it was too great. You calculated differently." Chen thought about that. "We do not calculate lives saved versus lives risked. We simply ask ourselves, can we help? If the answer is yes, then we help. It is that simple." "It is not simple at all," Cirrus said. "It is the hardest thing in the galaxy. But you make it look easy." He paused. "Safe journey home, Admiral. And please know that you will always have friends in the Veltara system. And you will always have guardians watching," Chen replied. "Stay safe, Ambassador." The transmission ended. Chen turned to her crew. "Set course for Earth. Take us home." The Indomitable and its escort fleet entered slipspace, leaving Veltara behind. But before they left, they did one more thing. On every Council emergency frequency, on every distress channel used by the species of the galaxy, a message began broadcasting. It played on repeat in every known language. "This is Earth. If you are in danger, call for help. We are listening. We will come. This is Earth. We are listening." Across the galaxy, species received the message with various reactions. Some were grateful. Some were fearful. But everyone understood what it meant. The quarantine was over. The Deathworlders were no longer contained. They were out there flying through the darkness between stars, listening for anyone who needed help. And the galaxy would never be the same.